The Biden administration has reaffirmed support for a two-state solution, but it has not moved to restart the negotiations. Joe Biden said that he had made it very clear to Netanyahu that a two-state solution was the only answer to resolve the war, and that occupying Gaza would be a big mistake. But he stated that it was not realistic to expect Tel Aviv to stop its military actions, given threats by senior Hamas officials that they intended to attack Israel again.
I made it clear to the Israelis that to Bibi and to his war cabinet that I think the only ultimate answer here is a two-state solution that's real. We got to get to the point where there's an ability to be able to even talk without worrying about whether or not we're just dealing with, they're dealing with Hamas that's going to engage in the same activities they did over the past, on the 7th. So but I can't tell, I'm not a fortune teller, I can't tell you how long it's going to last. But I can tell you I don't think it ultimately ends until there's a two-state solution. I made it clear to the Israelis I think it's a big mistake for them to think they're going to occupy Gaza and maintain Gaza. I don't think that works.
Biden told the reporters he was doing everything in his power to free the hostages held by the Hamas militants in Gaza. But that did not mean sending in the U.S. military. The U.S. president stated that he was mildly hopeful that there would be a deal to free Hamas-held hostages in Gaza. Biden disclosed the pause the Israelis have agreed to before cutting off his thought and saying, "I'm going to stop, but I'm mildly hopeful." Qatar has led negotiations for the release of hostages and also a temporary ceasefire in the war. The West Asian state is home to the political office of Hamas and is the main residence of the group's self-exiled leader, Ismail Haniyeh. The wealthy Gulf Emirate, who has used its channels with the militant group established with U.S. blessings to play a lead role in the release of 4 of the hostages so far.
I don't want to get ahead of myself here because I don't know what's happened in the last 4 hours, but we've gotten great cooperation from the Qataris. I've spoken with them as well a number of times. I think the pause and that the Israelis have agreed to, it's down to, well, I'm getting too much detail. I know, Mr. Secretary, I'm going to stop. But I am mildly hopeful. I'm mildly hopeful.
The U.S. president affirmed that he had asked Israel to be incredibly careful in its military moves around hospitals in the Strip.
They were told, let me be precise. We've discussed the need for them to be incredibly careful.
Tel Aviv says 1,200 people were killed when Hamas militants stormed into Israel on October 7th. Israel then launched an unrelenting bombing of Hamas-ruled Gaza. Late last month, it began an armored invasion of the enclave where over 11,000 people have been killed, around 40% of them children. And joining me on this broadcast is our correspondent Jody Cohen, reporting live and on ground from Ra'anana. Well, Jody has been giving us the latest updates from on ground since the day of the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th. Well, Jody, we are hearing reports of a potential hostage release deal. How likely do you think that will happen?
Hi, Rahisha. Yes, so Reuters has reported that the Qatari official said that Hamas agreed to release 50 hostages in exchange for a 3-day pause in fighting and the release of some women and under 18s convicted of terror attacks who are in Israeli prisons. Now, the reports suggest that the deal could happen potentially within days, but I do want to add that we have heard numerous reports over the past few weeks about imminent deals which did not materialize, so it remains to be seen what will will happen with this one. Remember, there are roughly 240 people, including babies, children, women and the elderly, who've been held in Gaza now since Hamas's 7th of October massacre against Israel. Doctors who treated some of the hostages before they were kidnapped have warned of their fragile health. And we know that one woman was 8 months pregnant and she's expected now to have given birth in captivity. Hamas is said to have 180 of the hostages. Islamic Jihad has 40 and mob families reportedly have 20, which is complicating negotiations which are led by Qatar. Meanwhile, many of the hostage families are marching from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. They want to put pressure on the Israeli government to make sure that the hostages stay a top priority. And Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen visited the Red Cross with some of those hostage families and called on the Red Cross to secure visits to the hostages.
Judy, the war has been going on for over a month now. What can you tell us about the risk of the war spreading further?
Right, so if you have a look first of all on Israel's southern border with Gaza, War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz has said that the fighting would continue even if there's a temporary pause for a hostage deal. President Biden has seemed to back that up. He said that the Gaza operation will end when Hamas is no longer able to murder Israelis. And he talked about Hamas saying that they plan to commit more 7th of October style massacres against Israel. Now, Defense Minister Gallant has met with Brett McCurk, who's the White House coordinator for the Middle East, and said that Israel will end the Gaza operation when all of the hostages are returned and when Hamas has been dismantled. But if you look to Israel's northern border, Hamas are reportedly asking Hezbollah to get more involved. We saw the first missiles fired from Lebanon on the 8th of October and repeated rockets and infiltration attempts since then into Israel. The IDF say they're striking Hezbollah targets in response. We've also seen rockets from Syria and from the Houthis in Yemen, and as well as Gazan civilians evacuating from the north of Gaza to the south where it's safer, Israeli civilians have also been evacuated from the north and from the south into the centre. Now, McCurk is also going to be visiting Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Bahrain for talks on preventing this war from spreading.
Right,
President Biden has urged China to put pressure on Iran not to widen this conflict.
Right, Jody, thanks very much for joining us on WION and sharing your insights with us. We'll, of course, be tracking this very closely right here.